Charles the Tenth led to his downfall. So we are saying the diplomats at Vienna restored the Bourbons. Restored the what? For example, they restored King Louis the 18th. And when King Louis the 18th was going to die, he called the Count d'Artois. And he told Count d'Artois, my brother, I'm going to die, but don't do the same mistakes King Louis the 16th did. He warned him. But at the burial ceremony of Louis the 18th, Charles said, I'm going to do the same things Louis the 16th did. I can tell you the man promised to do the same things. That's why by 1830, people staged the revolution, which revolution led to the collapse of Charles the what? The 10th. So in this kind of arrangement, we are challenging minds. We need to understand how Charles the 10th led to his what? Downfall. Of course, he was expected to rule for some years, but it led to his downfall. So our first point, we are saying, let me first talk about Charles. Charles was a restored Bourbon ruler who succeeded his brother King Louis the 18th from 1824 to 1830. He was originally called Count d'Artois, and he took the title of Charles the 10th after his coronation in 1825. So we are realizing that Charles led to his what? Downfall. Let us see. Number one, Charles dissolved the National Guard. You remember the National Guard, this was a revolutionary army which was meant to promote liberty, equality, and fraternity. But when Charles came to power, he dissolved the National Guard since he didn't want to associate himself with the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. So it is this that led to his downfall. Because people rose up against him, they could not support a man who was dissolving the National Guard, which National Guard was a symbol of the French Revolution. Another one, he attempted to change the Concordat, which Napoleon had signed with the Pope in 1801. Napoleon had signed an agreement with the Pope, where Napoleon was saying he was going to cooperate with the Catholic Church. You remember the revolutionaries signed the civil constitution of the clergy, which civil constitution of the clergy decreased the privileges of the Catholic Church. But when Napoleon took power, he signed the Concordat. Charles the 10th attempted to change the Concordat, attempting to change the Concordat, which was signed by Napoleon, which Napoleon so much worked according to liberty, equality, and fraternity. This made people to rise up against Charles the what? The 10th. They restored Bourbons. They were given a constitution, and they were told to rule according to the what? To the constitution. But I don't know what was wrong with Charles the 10th. Another one, he violated the 1814 constitutional charter. We are saying today, the man violated the constitutional charter. This was a charter agitating for freedom, like freedom of worship. You were supposed to give people freedom of worship, but this man violated the what? The charter. Because for him, he said he was going to rule as King Louis the 16th ruled. This made people to rise up against Charles. That's why in 1830, there was a revolution in a country called France. Another one, he practiced extravagance, which made the French treasury bankrupt. We are saying at a time when the economy was on its knees, Charles the 10th was extravagant, wasting government money in unnecessary issues, celebrations, morning, afternoon, evening. He was fond of what? Celebrations. We couldn't mind. But he was using government what? Government money. So in this kind of arrangement, I can say this led to the downfall of Charles the Tenth, a man who was supposed to serve. Another one is censured the press. How did he do this? The man imprisoned the journalists. These journalists used to criticize Charles's regime. So what he did is censured the what? The press. It didn't allow newspapers to exist. Those newspapers that were criticizing Charles the what? The Tenth. You were meant to praise only one man in the room. And that man was Charles the what? The Tenth. Another one, he oppressed the liberals in France during his reign. He oppressed the what? The liberals. For example, in the Chamber of Deputies. In the Chamber of what? Deputies. This was a parliament, but this man oppressed the liberals. He didn't allow liberals like to promote liberty, equality, and fraternity. So we are criticizing a man called Charles the what? The Tenth. Another one, he passed the law of St. Cloud Ordinance, 25th July 1830. By this time, the man passed the St. Cloud Ordinance. This was a law where Charles said he revived what you call letter de cachet, imprisonment without trial. If he suspected that you are rising up against his government, you were meant to be what? Imprisoned. This made him unpopular. A man became unpopular. Another point, he lacked political advisors to execute his state duties. It is said the man didn't have political what? Advisors. Let me tell you, a leading politician must have great advisors around him. Sometimes these are called the great thinkers around the king or the president. But the man didn't have spin doctors. So it is this that led to his downfall. By this time, that's why when he dismissed a liberal man, Poliginaka, he was ill advised by the weak what? People around him. Another point, his coronation took place in Reims Cathedral. Let me tell you. Let me first explain this. His coronation took place in Reims Cathedral. What was all about this cathedral? This was the cathedral where other first kings, before the collapse of the Bourbon monarchy, used to be taken when they were going to rise to power, altogether, to swear. So his coronation was taken there. This meant that this man learned nothing and forgot nothing. In other words, the man wanted to do the same things as they were before 1789. That's why we are saying Charles led to his own downfall. Then he practiced favoritism. For example, he appointed Poliginaka, his friend, to replace Matiginaka, who was liberal-minded. This man dismissed the liberal man, Matiginaka, and he chose a dictator called the Poliginaka. Choosing a dictator made Charles to become unpopular. By the way, time came, Charles said, I'm dismissing Poliginaka today. But it was too late. Because people were moving on streets, rising up against Charles the what? The Tenth. I can tell you, Charles was losing power. He confiscated the land from the peasants. You remember the French Revolution gave peasants somewhat, some land. But when this man took political power, he confiscated land. Land that belonged to the peasants had to be removed from them. I can tell you, Charles the Tenth was meant to collapse. Because when he took land which belonged to the peasants, it is this that made the majority peasants to rise up against his what? Government. Another one, it is said, in 1825, he compensated the immigrants. He compensated the immigrants where he paid 40 million pounds or 1,000 million what? Francs. This was the money Charles gave to the immigrants, claiming that these people lost their property when they moved from France to where? To Austria. So when he came to power, he compensated the what? The immigrants. Compensating the immigrants meant that this man was against the French what? Revolution. And finally, we are saying Charles led to his own downfall. Another one, he rejected the advice of Prince Metternich and Alexander I of Russia. Let me tell you, though Metternich was a dictator, but he was advising Charles at least to try to honor the what? The constitution. But Charles said, I'm going to do the same things as they were. Before 1789, I can tell you Charles was a dictator. By this time, it was like putting a new wine in the old bottle. Because in this kind of arrangement, the man wanted to do the same things as they were before 1789. Another one, he failed to solve the problem of economic recession. There was what you call high levels of unemployment, high levels of poverty. But the government of Charles was busy celebrating when people were what? Dying. So by this time, this made people to rise up against Charles the what? The tenants. Another one, it is said, it denied the French people the right to vote. The man denied the French people the right to do what? To vote. To vote in France, you have to pay money. This annoyed some people who were not willing to do what? To vote. And by this time, they rose up against Charles the what? The tenants. Another one, he was obsessed with confidence to the extent that he did not station combatants in strategic areas like Paris. For him, he thought that he was so strong. That's why he could not put great combatants in Paris. People rose up in Paris against Charles because no combatants were there to stop them. Yeah? So it is this. That's why we are saying that Charles led to his what? Downfall in 1830. So I can tell you, a man who was so great, a man who rose up, finally did what? A collapse.